So I'm Roz. I work in environment and climate action at ECC, and I am a climate action manager. So my role is quite varied, but ultimately I work with other teams and departments at ECC, and help them sort of think about and take action on the climate agenda.
My name's David, and I work in a delivery assurance team within Essex County Council. So in simple terms, kind of my role is to help create an environment where a range of projects and programmes can be delivered successfully across the council. And this includes providing tools, training, reports, advice to project managers and senior leaders. And yeah, my role kind of within this is that I have a very keen interest in the environment, and I've also had my carbon literacy training, so interested in being involved in this and driving this forward.
So the climate network is for ECC employees, so it's internal. We're hoping that it will be a kind of a virtual community where we can sort of support and amplify work that's done by people at ECC, both at work and possibly sometimes at home. We're also hoping that we can support employees who are taking on their carbon literacy training. So as part of that process, you write a climate pledge, and one of those is sort of based around your based in your workplace. So we're hoping that we can help people sort of turn their pledges into reality. I think obviously climate is a very hot topic at the moment, and really it needs to be it should be a part of every conversation at work. So we're really hoping that members of the new network will make this happen.
I said I'm kind of interested in it anyway. I guess, there's a lot of things that I've done, like in my personal life, that's been, related to the environment. And, for me, it's about wanting to do a bit more at work as well, and making some of those kind of, my beliefs, I guess, I suppose, happen in reality in the workplace, and challenge where there are things that perhaps don't seem right for the environment, or that aren't being considered as part of the work that we do. So I think being part of this means that, potentially have more of an impact, more influence, and being another voice for change, for the better.
I think the main thing that you need is willing people who want to get involved. So this network is sort of being run by the likes of myself and David and some of our other colleagues, and we really want to see this work. And obviously, to have a successful network, you're going to need a lot of members who are also really passionate about it. So I think if there's an appetite for sort of working on the climate change agenda at your organisation or at your local authority, I don't see why something like this couldn't be replicated. Obviously, it depends on sort of your kind of digital infrastructure and things at the organisation. So we all have Microsoft Teams, and so this network is going to pretty much be purely virtual. And it will be a Teams channel that people can join and have conversations, and we'll have meetings. So it's nothing overly complicated. So I think in that sense, in theory, anyone could do it. But I think key is definitely having those willing people who want to get involved and make a difference.
I suppose from my point of view, it's also about continuous improvement, and it's around making sure that I don't think that there's just environmental benefits on their own. I often see that there's mutually beneficial outcomes for various other, whether it's productivity, efficiency, cost savings. So I think that there's something to be said about raising the voice of the environment, and actually that being beneficial in lots of other areas. And because of that, it's another angle to look at. And I think that when you've got people that are proactive and interested and engaged, I think that has lots more benefits than just for the environment. So for me, I think it's about allowing that voice to be heard and having a network, a platform to be able to share that and inspire others and empower them to move forward. So I think it can only, starts with a few people that are passionate, but I think that there's lots of other people that can see lots more benefits in this, and as a result, I think that there's a lot more wider benefits that any organisation can have from considering, environmental credentials within their work.
So Essex County Council has a commitment to be net zero by 2050, and that came out of the UK signing the Paris Agreement. And obviously the network's been set up and it's provided us with a load of recommendations to achieve this goal. But actually a lot of the work and the recommendations that the Commission have put forward will actually see us reaching net zero in many areas by 2030. So one of the things there will be that we've got a goal to have all ECC buildings, so the ECC estate, to be net zero by 2030. Obviously 2030 is not very long away at all, 7 years. And so internally, teams and departments are going to need to start making changes now to the way they work. We've got a really robust climate action plan, which will sort of drive the higher level pieces of work to achieve our net zero goals. But we also need to be making changes, to the way teams are running and how they do things differently. So we're hoping that this network will firstly kind of highlight some of the challenges that we're facing. And climate isn't the top of everyone's agenda. There's lots of other pressures at the moment in terms of cost of living, education, social care. So it's we're hoping this network will demonstrate the importance of the climate work, but also how it ties in with a lot of those other agendas. And I guess the goal then is that people can start seeing, how they could make changes in their own departments and their own functions that would, benefit the residents they work with or benefit their service. But also be working towards our goals to be net zero. So, we're hoping that different teams and departments will get inspiration from one another. There's been some great sort of climate initiatives happening across the council. So it's I guess for other departments being able to think, oh, well, they've done that and it's worked really well. How can we do that? They can have a really easy conversation and find out how they can sort of go about replicating that or doing something for themselves. So, I feel like that's kind of how it links. It's kind of highlighting our net zero goals and helping our teams and departments work towards those.
Take an assessment of the wider things that you do, in your daily life. Just assess the environmental impacts of it in general. So I know that's a lot to do, but even if it's just quickly taking note of, okay, yeah, this is the travel that I've made in the day, or this is the kind of things I've bought over the course of a week or so, just to kind of get in your mind the impact you're making, because I think a lot of what I've found is that it's the awareness in the first instance that helps you make wider changes and makes, practical changes, sustainable changes. So I think that if you can make that assessment, really look at just even take a week in your life and see what the kind of impact you're making on the environment, thinking of it in that lens specifically, I think then you're more likely to be able to categorize things, easy wins, much harder things to change. But you kind of get a bit more of an idea, whereas it's very easy to ignore just the general stuff you're doing on the course of your day and the course of your work or whatever it is. So I think taking that assessment, like a bit like the carbon footprint, I guess, the calculator, like just doing that little assessment, I think helps get you to a place where you can then make wider changes after that.
I would probably say that small changes still make a difference. So there's obviously everything we do ultimately will have a positive impact, and sometimes it can be a bit daunting when you're looking at things, obviously driving electric cars, great. Installing solar panels on your roof is also great. Never ever flying again, great. Those are like really kind of big ticket items, but sometimes that's just not feasible for everyone. And I don't think people should be disheartened if they can't do some of those other things. Even if you decide to walk to work twice a week instead of driving your car, or if you decide to have one meat-free meal a week, all of those changes really do make a difference, especially when you consider, the population of the UK and the whole world. If everybody is making those small changes, it will have a real impact. I think that would be my tip. I think keep going with the small changes, because you're still having a really great impact.